Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Wednesday, July 25th, 2018. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's baseball games, look at today's games, go over Gary Sanchez being placed on the disabled list by the Yankees, as well as the trade the Yankees made last night by acquiring Zach Britton of the Baltimore Orioles, and as well as the Red Sox acquiring Nathan Eovaldi from the Tampa Bay Rays. Kevin Love gets a contract extension. Todd Gurley gets a contract extension. And I'll close the podcast by doing my college football over-unders for the season. That's going to be fun. All right, let's get it started with baseball. Some interesting results from yesterday. The Marlins defeated the Braves 9-3 as they improved to 44-59. Atlanta drops to 54-44. Wayne Chen improves to 3-7. Julio Teheran drops to 7-7. I'm not going to go through the scoring because there's not a lot of time on my hands. The Cardinals defeated the Reds 4-2 in 11 innings as they improved to 51-50. Cincinnati drops to 44-57. Sam Tuaviala improves to 3-3. Amir Garrett drops to 0-2. Bud Norris gets his 19th save of the season. Austin Gomber, the rookie, took a no-hitter into the 7th inning. And this time the Cardinals lose a no-hitter after the fire alarm goes off. So, kind of funny there. The Orioles defeated the Red Sox 7-6 as they improved to 29-73. Boston drops to 71-32. Jeffrey Ramirez improves to 1-3. Drew Pomeranz drops to 1-4. Brad Brach gets his 11th save of the season. The Phillies defeated the Dodgers 7-4 in 16 innings, courtesy of a walk-off homer by Trevor Plouffe. As Philly improves to 56-44, the Dodgers drop to 56-45. Vince Velasquez out of the pen gets the win, 7-8 on the year. Enrique Hernandez came out and pitched out of the bullpen as he served up the game-winning home run and is charged with the loss. Yankees defeated the Rays 4-0 as they improved to 64-35. Tampa Bay drops to 51-50. Masahiro Tanaka improves to 8-2. Yanni Chirinos drops to 0-2. The Twins defeated the Blue Jays 5-0 as they improved to 46-53. Toronto drops to 46-54. Jose Berrios improves to 10-7. Ryan Baroque drops to 0-2. The Pirates defeated the Indians 9-4 for their 12th win in a row as they improve to 53-49. Cleveland drops to 54-46. Joe Musgrove improves to 4-4. Shane Bieber drops to 5-2. The Mets defeated the Padres 6-3 as they improve to 41-57. San Diego drops to 42-62. Zach Wheeler improves to 4-6. Eric Lauer drops to 5-7. The Athletics defeated the Rangers 13-10 in 10 innings as they come back from 8 runs down at one point in the game. As they improve to 59-43, Texas drops to 42-60. Jesus Familia improves to 2-0 as an Athletic. Austin Bivens drops to 2-3. Blake Trinan with the save. The Diamondbacks defeated the Cubs 5-1 as they improve to 56-46. The Cubs drop to 58-42. Clay Buchholz improves to 3-1. Kyle Hendricks drops to 6-9. The Brewers defeated the Nationals 5-4 in 10 innings as they improve to 58-45. Washington drops to 49-51. This is a walk-off sac fly by Tyler Saladino. Dan Jennings improves to 4-3. Matt Grace drops to 0-1. The Royals defeated the Tigers 5-4 as they improve to 31-69. Detroit drops to 43-50. Birch Smith improves to 1-1. Jordan Zimmerman drops to 4-2. Willie Peralta gets his 5th save of the season. The Astros defeated the Rockies 8-2 as they improve to 67-36. Colorado drops to 53-47. Hector Rondon improves to 2-2. Wade Davis drops to 0-3. Houston had a 6-run 10th inning as they pull away from the Rockies. The White Sox defeated the Angels 4-2 as they improved to 36-64. The Angels drops to 50-52. Carlos Rodon improves to 3-3. Felix Pena drops to 1-1. Joaquin Soria gets his 16th save of the year. The Giants defeated the Mariners 4-3 as they improved to 52-50. Seattle drops to 16-41. Tony Watson improves to 3-3. Edwin Diaz drops to 0-3. Will Smith gets his 4th save of the year. Today's games, you have a lot of day games today. 12 o'clock, Yankees-Rays. Luis Cessa against Ryan Stanek. Nathan Eovaldi was supposed to get the start. He was traded to the Red Sox just about a half hour ago. We'll get into that in a couple minutes. Padres-Mets. Clayton Richard against Corey Oswalt. 12:30, Cardinals-Reds. Jack Flaherty against Sal Romano. Dodgers-Phillies. Walker Buehler against Jake Arrieta. 1 o'clock, Pirates-Indians. Pirates going for 13 in a row. Jamison Tyon against Trevor Bauer. 12 straight. 2 o'clock, Nationals-Brewers. Tanner Roark against Freddie Peralta. 2:15, Tigers-Royals. Matt Boyd against Danny Duffy. 2:20, Diamondbacks-Cubs. Robbie Ray, John Lester. 4 o'clock, Twins-Blue Jays. Irvin Santana making his season debut against Sam Gaviglio. Giants-Mariners. Derek Holland against Mike Leake. 7 o'clock, ESPN. Red Sox-Orioles. David Price against Dylan Bundy. Disappointing loss for the Red Sox last night. I think they rebound tonight and get the win to continue to hold off the Yankees in the American League East. 8 o'clock, you have the Athletics and the Rangers. Edwin Jackson against Martin Perez. Astros-Rockies at 8:40. Charlie Morton and John Gray. And 10 o'clock, White Sox-Angels. James Shields and Tyler Skaggs. All right, Gary Sanchez was placed on the 10-day disabled list yesterday afternoon due to a groin strain, and I put that in quotations. Are they trying to hide a suspension? Is this a punishment? That could very well be the case, and the Yankees are just making this injury up. But maybe they're not. Maybe he really did pull his groin on the play that allowed the first run to score in the game on Monday night. So he's out for about a couple weeks. And the Yankees will platoon at catcher between Austin Romine and Kyle Higashioka. 2 contract extensions were given out yesterday. Kevin Love, 4 years, $120 million by the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't like this at all. Kevin Love should be a trade chip to help the Cavaliers improve for the long term, but no, the Cavaliers extend him, acting like LeBron's still on the team, which he's not. And this team should be building for the future. Build around Colin Sexton and all your young dudes. Kevin Love should be a trade asset. Maybe he will eventually get traded. Maybe this is the Blake Griffin move or their version of it where they extend the player and then they end up trading them within the year of the extension begins. So we'll see. And the other contract extension given out yesterday in the NFL, Todd Gurley, 4 years, $60 million with the Rams, $45 million guaranteed. Great deal for the Rams. Gurley totally reset the running back market with the contract he got. Now you are probably going to see other talented running backs get paid that much eventually, like Ezekiel Elliott, and down the road Saquon Barkley, and maybe Melvin Gordon, Devontae Freeman, who just got an extension, I believe, last year or the year before. And now the Rams, after paying a bunch of their guys, such as Brandon Cooks, who they acquired in the trade this past offseason, and now they extend Gurley, they just have to extend Aaron Donald. He's their best, perhaps all-around player, and he's not paid yet. And you don't want that to be a distraction if you're the Rams. Two trades in baseball happened yesterday. The Yankees acquired Zach Britton from the Baltimore Orioles for prospects Dylan Tate, Josh Rogers, and Cody Carroll. Those are three pitching prospects. Great move by the Yankees. They didn't have to give up anybody of importance. And Britton's going to slide right into the 7th and 8th inning roles, or one of them at least, for the Yankees. Their bullpen's by far the best in the league with the addition of Britton. They have Britton, they have Aroldis Chapman, they have Donovan Sanchez, and David Robertson. Chad Green, who's regressed a little bit. Maybe he'll turn it around eventually. Tommy Kahnle, who is in the minors right now because he was not very good in the majors this year. But if he comes back up and pitches well. And then you have Jonathan Holder, who's had a breakout year this year in the pen. So maybe that sort of cancels out Kahnle's struggles a little bit. And you also have A.J. Cole, who's come on and provided some good innings. Adam Warren's a good multi-inning reliever. Got the Yankees out of further trouble on Monday night and kept the game relatively close for them if they wanted to come back, which they tried, but that was the whole Aaron Boone made Didi bunt and intentionally walked Giancarlo Stanton, and then the Sanchez debacle happened. So that was that. And then the Red Sox this morning acquired Nathan Eovaldi from the Tampa Bay Rays for lefty starter from AAA, Jalen Beeks. I think it's a good deal for the Red Sox, a good risk worth taking, although Eovaldi's inconsistent. He's been very good as a Tampa Bay Ray. He had a couple rough starts, but mostly good starts. But this is more of like a we'll see, because he pitched pretty well when he was on the Yankees, and then he kind of just fell apart. So he is who he is pretty much, and this is a good pickup for them, considering that Eduardo Rodriguez and Steven Wright are both on the disabled list right now, and Drew Pomeranz has struggled in his past couple starts, including last night against the Orioles. Now, college football over-unders. Some of these numbers are pretty much regular numbers. So, I'm going to say over-under for all of these. There's probably going to be some pushes. These are not really any official picks. This is more of a leans type of thing. With the season starting in exactly a month from today, the first weekend of games, where there's not many games, there's like 5 or 6 games that are on TV. And then the season really, really gets underway on August 30th, which is a Thursday. So I'm going to do these over-unders, and I'll look back on these when the regular season's over and see how I do. All right, here we go. I'm going to go conference by conference. I'm going to say the team, go over a little description, then I'll say my pick. I'm going to start with the AAC. Cincinnati, their number's at 4. The Bearcats of Cincinnati went 4-8 a season ago. They looked to rebound from that. Luke Fickell's in his second season as head coach. They have some favorable matchups at home and on neutral sites. Good recruiting class. I would take the over on the Cincinnati Bearcats. Next up is the Yukon Huskies. Randy Edsall's in his second year, in his second stint as the Yukon coach. A year ago, this team went 3-9. They look to improve on that. Their schedule is pretty hard. I only see like one guaranteed win on here. Some of these games won't be easy, so give me under 3.5, and this is my lock for the AAC. And there's not a lot of talent on this roster. And Randy Edsall's only had one wow season as a head coach, which he took UConn to the Fiesta Bowl. East Carolina's number is at 3. Scotty Montgomery is on the hot seat. Their schedule's pretty hard. Their quarterback Gardner Minshew transferred to Washington State. Give me the under for the East Carolina Pirates, who went 3-9 last year, so I think they go under that number 3 this year, although a push can't be ruled out here. The Houston Cougars numbers at 7.5. Major Applewhite's in his second season as head coach. They have some favorable matchups on their schedule, some hard ones out of conference. They have Arizona at home, and they are at Texas Tech. Those are going to be 2 difficult games. Some favorable home games on the schedule in conference. Ed Oliver is one of the best, if not the best, defensive player in the country. The Eric King could be a breakout quarterback, so give me over 7.5 for the Houston Cougars. Next up is the Memphis Tigers. Mike Norvell's in his 3rd season as head coach. Memphis won 10 games a season ago. This is a pretty talented roster, although they lost some players, such as quarterback Riley Ferguson and wide receiver Anthony Miller. Their schedule is a little favorable this year. Some of the weaker teams in the Sun Belt come into Memphis this season. They also have Mercer at home, UConn at home. Those should be easy wins. Tulsa is going to be an improved team. We'll get to them. At Missouri is a hard game on their schedule, but this is pretty manageable. So give me over 8.5 for the Memphis Tigers. Next up is the Navy midshipman. Ken Niumatalolo is in his 11th season as head coach. Navy went 7-6 a year ago. So the over-under number is at right where it pretty much should be. They have some interesting games on their schedule, such as going to Air Force and playing Notre Dame on a neutral, which is going to be a primetime game on CBS. And so, of course, they have the Army game, which they have every year. This year it's going to be in Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial Field. Malcolm Perry, somebody that could be a breakout quarterback this season. Their schedule, some home games on there are pretty favorable, but their road games are actually okay, other than at UCF and at Air Force. At SMU would be pretty difficult too. Even at Hawaii, although Hawaii's not going to be good this year, that might not even be an easy game, because going out to Hawaii isn't really that easy, especially for a team in the East Coast. So give me over 7, although I won't be shocked if it's a push. Next up is the South Florida Bulls, who were everybody's darling last year to make a New Year's Six Bowl before the season, but ended up being their conference rivals, the UCF Golden Knights. Charlie Strong's in his 2nd season as the Bulls head coach. They have some interesting games on their schedule, such as Georgia Tech coming to town. They play Illinois at Soldier Field. Couple difficult road games at Houston and at Temple. And they obviously have the annual War on Interstate 4 game with UCF, the last game of the season. That is actually at Raymond James Stadium this year. Despite some holes on this roster, I could see a scenario where this team goes 9-3, and let's say they just drop a couple road games. So give me the over for South Florida. Next up is the SMU Mustangs, who went 7-6 a year ago. Chad Morris is gone. Sonny Dykes is in. And this is his first full season as head coach. He coached in the bowl game last year. This schedule is pretty hard. They go to North Texas to open the year. North Texas is going to be one of the better teams in the Conference USA. We'll get to them. TCU comes to town. They go to Michigan. This is pretty hard as a schedule. There's only one road game on here that I can see as an almost lock to win, which is at UConn. UConn's a joke. Even at Tulsa and at Tulane won't be easy. So give me under 6.5. Ben Hicks is a solid quarterback, but he lost his top 2 wide receivers from a year ago. So under 6.5 for SMU. Temple is also at 6.5. They went on a tear at the end of the year last year, ended up 7-6. Jeff Collins' second season as head coach. They have some favorable games on their schedule. Their non-con isn't that difficult either. At Maryland, Boston College is going to be tough, though. That's probably a loss. But their conference schedule isn't that hard. Although 3 road games are actually pretty hard. At Navy, at UCF, and at Houston. Frank Newtile showed promise at the quarterback spot last year. Their defense is solid. So give me the over. Although those 3 road games I just mentioned before are probably losses, and the Boston College game is probably a loss, I can see them managing to get to 7 wins in the regular season. Next up is the Tulane Green Wave, who went 5-7 a year ago. Could have made a bowl. Their numbers at 5.5 this year. Willie Fritz is in his 3rd season as head coach. The schedule has a couple breaks in there, but at the same time, there's a lot of hard road games, such as at Houston, at South Florida's hard. Even at Tulsa won't be easy. Cincinnati's going to be improved. At Ohio State's almost definitely a loss. Even at UAB won't be easy for Tulane. Jonathan Banks is a good quarterback. But I'm going to take the under 5.5. I'm going to say this is 5-7 for the Tulane Green Wave. And speaking of Tulsa, their number is 4. They had a really bad year last year. They went 2-10. They look to rebound from that. Their number's set at 4, as I mentioned. Their schedule's not easy, although they have some home games that I think they're capable of winning, such as Tulane, Connecticut, SMU, even Arkansas State. I think they can win that game. Central Arkansas is almost definitely a win. Their road schedule is very difficult. I'm going to take the over, but this is probably a push. There's a lot of returning players from last year's 2-10 debacle, and I really like Philip Montgomery as a head coach. Last but not least, in the American Athletic Conference is the UCF Knights, whose number is at 9. This is the best team in this conference. Josh Heupel's in his 1st season as head coach, taking over for Scott Frost, who departed for Nebraska. Their schedule has some favorable matchups on there. I like their non-con a lot, although at FAU coming to town won't be easy. Even at North Carolina won't be easy. Pitt's in a rebuilding situation, and their in-conference schedule, SMU comes to town, Cincinnati comes to town. Temple and Navy won't be easy. At East Carolina isn't bad. At Memphis will be difficult. At South Florida is difficult. And at UConn to open the season is probably their easiest road game. Give me over 9, although this is a push in the making. Mackenzie Milton is a stud quarterback. As I mentioned, their schedule is a little favorable. Now, the ACC. This is going to be a fun one. First up is the Eagles of Boston College. Steve Adazio's in his 6th season as head coach already. Their schedule is favorable, although some of these games won't be easy. At Purdue won't be easy. At Virginia Tech's never easy. At Florida State won't be easy. I expect them to be better. Clemson at home is their toughest home game. They probably won't win that one. I can see them picking off a team like Miami at home. Louisville's going to take a step back. Temple at home, likely a win, as I mentioned before. At Wake Forest won't be easy. Holy Cross is a win. A.J. Dillon is a dark horse Heisman candidate. Give me over 5.5. Next up is the Clemson Tigers, who made the college football playoff for the 2nd year in a row. They lost to Alabama. Dabo Swinney is in his 10th full season as head coach. Trevor Lawrence will be a quarterback upgrade. Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence are studs on defense. Their schedule is pretty manageable. A couple hard road games that I could see being losses, or at least one of them, because I can't see this team winning single-digit games. Texas A&M won't be easy in College Station. At Georgia Tech won't be easy, even though that team might take a step back this year. At Florida State's never easy. At Boston College won't be easy. But that said, give me over 11, although a push is certainly not out of the question. Next up is the Duke Blue Devils, who are coming off a 7-6 season. David Cutcliffe's in his 11th season as head coach already. Their schedule isn't as favorable as people think. They have to go to Clemson and Miami. They have to go to Georgia Tech. They have to go to Northwestern and Baylor. Although Baylor isn't going to be good. Northwestern's always good. Daniel Jones, yes, he's a good quarterback. I'm going to go under 6.5. This looks like a 6-6 team to me. Next up is the Florida State Seminoles. Jimbo Fisher is gone to Texas A&M. Willie Taggart is in. They look to bounce back from a disastrous season a year ago, although they managed to make a bowl game. The first game right off the bat is not easy. Virginia Tech at home. They have some challenging road games, such as at Miami, at Notre Dame. Florida coming to town won't be easy. At NC State won't be easy. Clemson coming to town won't be easy. Even though Louisville is probably going to take a step back, at Louisville probably won't be easy with Bobby Petrino leading things there. Syracuse should be improved. They have to travel there. Cam Akers and DeAndre Francois are good building blocks to have on offense at quarterback and running back respectively, with Akers in the backfield and DeAndre Francois your quarterback. Give me under 7.5. This feels like a 7-5 team to me. Although this is one I'm probably going to get wrong because they're Florida State and they have two talented players in Akers and Francois, as I just mentioned. Next up is the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Their number's at 5.5. Paul Johnson's in his 11th season as head coach. They went 5-6 a year ago. So the number is right about right. They have some difficult road games, such as at South Florida, at Virginia Tech, even at North Carolina won't be easy. And then you have at Georgia the last week of the season, which is not going to be easy at all. That's probably the toughest game on their schedule. Home schedule is pretty favorable. You have Virginia coming to town. Miami won't be easy. Duke's going to be improved. Clemson's the best team in the country, perhaps, if not certainly the best team in the ACC. Alcorn State is probably an easy win, as well as Bowling Green. But that said, give me under 5.5, although Paul Johnson, as I mentioned, a pretty good coach. This feels like 5 and 7. Next up is the Louisville Cardinals. Bobby Petrino's in his 5th season in his 2nd stint. Lamar Jackson is gone. Their number's at 7. They opened the season facing Alabama in Orlando in the primetime ABC game on that Saturday night, September 1st. A lot of other road challenges, such as at Virginia, at Boston College, at Syracuse, at Clemson. Their home schedule is pretty manageable. Western Kentucky is going to take a step back in the CUSA. Indiana State should be a win. FSU, we don't know what they are. Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, NC State should be okay. Kentucky, who knows with them. 7's a tricky number. I'm going to say under, but probably will be a push. Next up is the Miami Hurricanes, whose number is at 10. I think that number is ridiculously high. Mark Rick's in his 3rd season as head coach. Miami had a good year last year. Was in the mix for the college football playoff, fell apart at the end of the year. They opened the year against LSU in Cowboys Stadium. They have some other difficult games on their schedule. Florida State comes to town. They have to go to Virginia Tech. They have to go to Boston College. As talented as this team is, they're going to have a great defense. I'm going to say under 10. There's some losable road games on this schedule, although a push is certainly in play here. Next up is the North Carolina Tar Heels. Larry Fedora's in his 7th season as head coach. He's on the hot seat. North Carolina went 3-9 a year ago. They look to rebound from that. Their number's at 5. Their schedule's actually not that hard. East Carolina's rebuilding in the American Conference. Just talked about that before. UCF at home won't be easy. Couple breaks at home. Western Carolina, that should be a win. They have the NC State game at home this year. They host Georgia Tech. The road schedule's hard at Miami, at Virginia, at Syracuse, at Cal open the year. The number's 5. I'm going to take the over here, although this is likely a push. And I talked about the Wolfpack a second ago. They're next. Their number's at 7. David Dorian's in his 6th season as head coach. NC State went 9-4 a season ago. Their schedule is hard, but some of it breaks late. Out of conference, West Virginia comes to town. That's going to be an interesting matchup. And their other out-of-conference games are actually pretty easy. James Madison and Georgia State come to town and at Marshall. But the West Virginia game's the only hard game they have outside of the conference. In-conference schedule's difficult. They have to go to North Carolina. They have to go to Louisville. They have to go to Clemson. Boston College comes to town. Florida State comes to town. Wake Forest comes to town. And I mentioned their numbers at 7. I do love Ryan Finley, their quarterback. He's a stud. I'm going to take under 7, but a push seems likely. Next up is the Pittsburgh Panthers, whose number's at 5.5. Pat Narduzzi's in his 4th season. He is on the hot seat after going 5-7 a year ago. So 5.5 seems like an appropriate number. Their schedule is very, very tough. They have Penn State coming to town in a primetime game on ABC. They have to go to UCF, to Notre Dame, to Virginia, to Miami, to Wake Forest, to North Carolina. They have Virginia Tech at home. They have Georgia Tech at home. Give me under 5.5. Kenny Pickett's promising at quarterback, but I just don't see Narduzzi's team making a bowl this season. Next up is the Syracuse Orange. Their number's ridiculous. Their number's at 6. Yes, folks expect improvement in Dino Babers' third season as head coach, as do I. But this schedule is very difficult. They have to go to Clemson. They have to go to Wake Forest. They have to play Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium, at Boston College, at Pitt, even though Pitt won't be that good. They have to go to Western Michigan to open the season. Wagner at home should be easy. UConn at home, probably a win. And even some of their home games are tough. Louisville, NC State, Florida State. And as I went through the schedule, yeah, you can easily make a case for 6. But give me the under. And I'm going to go this far. I think it's a lock. Although this is probably going to be the lock that I'm going to regret. Because I can low-key see a scenario where they can pull off 6. But let's give them wins. At Western Michigan. Wagner at home. UConn at home. North Carolina at home. Louisville at home. NC State at home might be a loss. Florida State at home, probably a loss. So there's your 5 and 7. And that's where they feel like to me. Next up is a team that overachieved a year ago, and that's the Virginia Cavaliers. Bronco Mendenhall's an excellent coach. He's in his 3rd season already. Virginia went 6-7 a year ago. Well, 6-6 and lost in their bowl game. Their schedule is favorable. Richmond and Ohio come to town, although Ohio is one of the best teams in the MAC. Louisville comes to town. Pitt comes to town. Liberty, new FBS team, comes to town. Their road schedule is difficult. They have to go to Duke, NC State, Indiana, Virginia Tech, and Georgia Tech. But give me the over here. I like Bryce Perkins. He should be good at quarterback. He's a transfer. I mentioned how much I like Mendenhall. Wouldn't be surprised if this is a push, so give me 5 with the over. Next up is the Virginia Tech Hokies. Justin Fuente's in his 3rd season as head coach already. He was fantastic his first 2 seasons at Virginia Tech. Their schedule is very difficult with a lot of tough games on the road at Florida State and at Duke, at North Carolina, at Pitt. Let's say they split those and they have some favorable home games. William & Mary, East Carolina. Notre Dame at home won't be easy. Boston College at home, it won't be easy. Miami at home won't be easy. Let's say they go 2-1 in those games. The number's 8.5. This feels very 9-3 to me. Give me the over. Although Josh Jackson might not even be the best quarterback on their roster. Next up, and last but not least, in the ACC, you have Wake Forest. Their number's at 6. David Clawson's done a nice job as their head coach the last couple years. He's in his 5th year there. Wake went 7-5 a year ago and won in the Belk Bowl. Their schedule is actually pretty favorable this season. At Tulane might not be easy, but that's a winnable game. Towson should be a win. Some easy home games to start the year other than Clemson and Notre Dame coming to town. And the other 2 home games are Boston College and Rice. So that should be 2-2 right there. At Florida State and at Louisville won't be easy. At NC State won't be easy. At Duke even won't be easy. So I can easily envision a scenario where they go over the 6. So give me over 6 for Wake Forest. Big Ten, this is going to be fun. Another fun conference. I'm going to start with the Illinois Fighting Illini, who is the worst team in this conference. Lovie Smith's in his 3rd year as head coach. He's on the hot seat already. Their schedule is very, very hard. They should start 2-0. but the rest of their games, they're probably not even going to be favored in. So give me under 3.5. I'm tempted to say lock. Next up is the Indiana Hoosiers. Their number's at 5. Tom Allen's in his second season as head coach. They went 5-7 a year ago. They're scheduled. They have some winnable games. Virginia at home. At FIU, it's winnable. Ball State at home is very winnable. At Rutgers is even winnable, even though Rutgers should be improved. At Ohio State is probably a loss. Iowa and Penn State at home won't be easy. Maryland at home is winnable. Purdue at home, winnable. Brandon Dawkins, I like him to be their quarterback. And give me over 5, although this has a push in the making. Next up is the Iowa Hawkeyes, who are always capable of pulling off an upset, especially in their home stadium. They went 7-5 a year ago. Their number's at 7.5. Their schedule has a lot of home games that are favorable to them, such as the Cy-Hawk Trophy game. Although Iowa State, I'll get to them, they're improved. Northern Illinois at home should be a win. Northern Iowa at home should be a win. Wisconsin comes to town, won't be easy. Maryland at home, winnable. At Indiana's winnable. At Penn State's not going to be easy. At Purdue won't be easy. Northwestern at home, winnable. At Illinois, absolutely winnable. Nebraska at home, winnable. Give me over 7.5 for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Next up is the Maryland Terrapins, 4.5. DJ Durkin's in his third season already. They went 4-8 a year ago. Their number is at 4.5. Their schedule is not very favorable. They have Texas the first game of the year in Landover. And Texas is going to be improved. I'll get to them in the Big 12 portion of this. At Bowling Green, should be a win. Temple at home, winnable. Minnesota at home, winnable. But after that, it gets difficult, although Rutgers at home is winnable. And that's making your case for 5. But I just don't see them beating Texas. And even Temple could be a loss. So give me under 4.5. This feels like 4-8 again for the Terrapins. Next up is the Michigan Wolverines. Their number's at 9. This is a tricky one to me. Year 4 for Jim Harbaugh. He has no offensive coordinator this year, which I think is weird. At Notre Dame, right off the bat, is very, very difficult for them. Their next 3 games are all home games against Western Michigan, SMU, and Nebraska. All should be wins. At Northwestern won't be easy. At Michigan State on October 20th won't be easy. At Rutgers should be a win. At Ohio State, not easy at all. Penn State at home should be a win. Wisconsin at home could be a win. Like I said, this schedule is very difficult. They have some favorable home games against Wisconsin and Penn State, as I just mentioned. Shea Patterson is a quarterback upgrade. Give me under 9, although this feels like a push to me. I'm probably going to predict 9-3 once I do my official predictions podcast, which will be in about a month from now. The Michigan State Spartans are also at 9. Mark D'Antonio's in year 12 already. Their schedule, I think, is pretty favorable. I think they can go 3-0 out of the conference at Arizona State. I do not think Arizona State's going to be good whatsoever with Herm Edwards there. Utah State and Central Michigan at home should be wins. At Indiana could be a loss in theory. At Penn State could be a loss. Some favorable home games. Ohio State comes to town. Michigan comes to town. At Nebraska's winnable. At Maryland's winnable. Rutgers comes to town. Purdue comes to town. Give me over 9, although this could be a push too. And I really like Brian Lewerke, who could be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten this season. Next up is the Minnesota Golden Gophers, their number's at 6. PJ Fleck, second year, rode the boat. A year ago, they went 5-7. I expect them to bounce back this year. I expect them to be in a bowl game. New Mexico State at home to begin the season is not easy. Fresno State at home, not easy. Even Miami of Ohio is should be a good MAC team this year. So their out of conference isn't as easy as people think, although those 3 matchups are at home. So they could, in theory, start 3-0. Could be up to 5-0 before going at Columbus to face Ohio State. That's a difficult road game. And at Wisconsin's a difficult road game, too. And every other game on their schedule is winnable. So over 6 is a very, very, very good play here. And don't sleep on Rodney Smith. He's an awesome running back. So I expect an improvement in year 2 under PJ Fleck. Next up, another number at 6 is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Scott Frost, year 1. Their schedule, to me, isn't so favorable. Although out of conference is favorable, but in conference is not. They have to go to Michigan and Wisconsin and Northwestern and Ohio State and Iowa. Those feel like 5 losses right off the bat. And Michigan State certainly is not going to be easy at home. So give me under 6, although this feels like a push. And they have Adrian Martinez as a freshman quarterback who I expect to be good. Next up is another number at 6 is the Northwestern Wildcats. Pat Fitzgerald, I think, is one of the most underrated coaches in college football. 13th season at Northwestern. Clayton Thorson is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten this season. Their schedule is not so favorable, especially their road schedule. They have to go to Purdue, Michigan State, although Rutgers is going to be pretty easy, unless they're more improved than I think. At Iowa and at Minnesota, 2 winnable games. Some hard home games. Notre Dame's not going to be easy. Coming to Evanston. Wisconsin coming to town won't be easy. Nebraska at home should be a win. Michigan at home won't be easy. Duke and Akron out of conference at home. Akron should be a win. Duke, I expect to be a tough game, but the game's in Evanston, so I expect Northwestern to win that one. So give me over 6, although a push could be in theory in play. Ohio State's at 10.5. Dwayne Haskins, I think, is a quarterback upgrade over JT Barrett. Nick Bosa is arguably the best defensive player in college football. I'm a big fan of his. Urban Meyer's already in year 7. I think this team can absolutely go undefeated. There's a couple road games I can see them losing. At Michigan State, at Penn State, provide their toughest challenges, in my opinion, and even they're neutral against TCU, considering it's in Arlington. I expect them to go 2-1 in those games, so I'm expecting 11-1 from Ohio State this season, and I like the over, and I think this is a team that certainly can make the college football playoff. Next up is the Penn State Nittany Lions. Their number is at 9.5. They lose Saquon Barkley. James Franklin's already in year 5. Their schedule is pretty favorable, with Ohio State and Michigan State coming to town, and Iowa. Their only hard road game to me is at Michigan. Wisconsin coming to town too won't be easy. So 9.5 over. And Micah Parsons is going to help defensively, by the way. He's a good player. Next up is the Purdue Boilermakers. Boiler up? Not so fast. I'm taking under 6. Jeff Brom, year 2. Their schedule's very hard. They overachieved a year ago. Although they, in theory, could start 4-0. But Missouri and BC are not easy out of the conference. Eastern Michigan won't be that easy either. They're one of the better teams in the MAC. Northwestern's okay. That, in theory, could be 4-0. But their schedule is a gauntlet after Boston College. Although at Nebraska, in theory, could be a win. So could, or likely, at Illinois could be a win. Ohio State comes to town. That's not easy. Iowa comes to town. That's not easy. At Indiana, in theory, could be a win. I'm going to say under 6, but I'm probably going to pick a push because the schedule is pretty tough. Next up is the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Their number's at 4. Chris Ash already in year 3 as the head coach. Their schedule at a conference, Texas State at home should be a win. At Kansas should be a win. All of the games in Lawrence. Buffalo at home, probably a win. At a conference is very difficult. They have to go to at Ohio State, and that's in week 2 of the season. At Maryland won't be easy. At Wisconsin, at Michigan State. Michigan and Penn State come to High Point Solution Stadium as well as Northwestern. Illinois at home, probably going to be a win. You can make a case for over or a push here, but I'm going to say under. Their recruiting's been better. I'm going to say under, although I think a push is certainly in play. That'll probably end up being my official pick, but I'm going to say under here. And last but not least, in the Big Ten, you have the Wisconsin Badgers. Paul Chryst in year 4 already. He's done a great job. Their schedule at home, at least, is favorable. New Mexico is going to take a step back in the Mountain West Conference. Western Kentucky's taking a step back in CUSA. BYU, they're a bit of a wild card to me. Their in-conference road schedule is not easy. They have to go to Kinnick Stadium to take on Iowa. They have to go to Ann Arbor to face Michigan. They have to go to Evanston to take on Northwestern. And they have to go to Penn State to take on the Nittany Lions. And even Purdue won't be easy. I'm going to say under 10. I can totally see this team going 9-3. I think under 10's a lock. I hate to say it because this is such a talented team, and I'm a big fan of Paul Chryst. Under 10 to me is a lock. This is 9-3, maybe even 8-4 in the making. Hard road schedule. I really like Jonathan Taylor. If they end up going over 10, Jonathan Taylor could be a Heisman favorite. Big 12, another fun conference. An interesting conference. I really think the bookmakers in Las Vegas think that some of these teams are going to bounce back after disappointing seasons. First up is the Baylor Bears. Their number is at 6. Matt Rule, I think, is going to be a great coach, and I think he's eventually going to turn Baylor around. But is Vegas, I think Vegas is crazy. Is Vegas really kidding themselves? From expecting Baylor to go from 1 win to 6 wins? I think that's a bit of a stretch. Give me the under. Hard road games on their schedule. Duke coming to town in week 3 won't be easy, although Abilene Christian should be a win. At UTSA should be a win. And Kansas at home in week 4 should be a win. But their Big 12 schedule outside of Kansas is a gauntlet. They have to go to Oklahoma and Texas. They have to go to Morgantown to face West Virginia. Iowa State isn't going to be easy. Texas Tech and Arlington's not going to be easy. Oklahoma State and TCU come to town. So I'm going to say under, but a push won't dumbfound me by any stretch because I'm a big fan of Rule. Next up is the Iowa State Cyclones. Year 3 for Matt Campbell. They overachieved the year ago. They made a bowl game, won their bowl game. They went 7-5, won the bowl game to go 8-5. Their schedule is hard from a road standpoint. They have to go to Iowa City and Fort Worth and Stillwater. At Lawrence will be a win. At Texas won't be easy in Austin. Even some of their home games won't be easy, such as Oklahoma, who's going to be looking for revenge in that game. West Virginia at home's not going to be easy. Will Greer in that offense. I'll get to them in a little bit in this segment. Texas Tech, even that's not that easy. Kansas State with Bill Snyder. The number 6.5. They'll probably win most of those hard home games, so I'm going to say over. This feels like a 7-5 for me. I really, really like Matt Campbell and the job he's done. The lock of the Big 12, the Kansas Jayhawks. Let's just say under 3. Worst team in the conference by far. Dave Beatty is going to lose his job. He's in year 4, and the schedule's not easy. The only guaranteed win I see is Nicholls State. Even Central Michigan in Mount Pleasant, to me, isn't a win. Rutgers at home might not even be a win. They're going to go winless in the conference again. So, under 3, lock. This has 1-11, 2-10 in the making. I'd be shocked if they hit 3. Kansas State is next. Their number's at 6. Bill Snyder's in his 10th season in his second stint. Their schedule is very difficult. Mississippi State coming to town. UTSA coming to town. That should be a win, though. Road schedule's not easy. At West Virginia, at Oklahoma, at Baylor, at TCU, at Iowa State. They could go winless in those games. The home schedule isn't bad, though. They have Kansas, Texas Tech. Oklahoma State at home is not going to be easy. Neither is Texas at home. I mentioned Mississippi State at home already. I absolutely love Bill Snyder. Alex Barnes is going to be a solid running back. I'm going to go under 6, although this feels like a push to me. Next up is the Oklahoma Sooners. Their number is at 10. Their schedule, to me, is very difficult. They have some tough road games on their schedule. Lincoln Riley in year 2. They made the playoff a year ago. Lost in the Rose Bowl to Georgia. FAU at home, their first game of the season, isn't going to be easy, although it should be a win. They're better than FAU. But FAU is one of the best teams in the group of 5. UCLA at home even won't be easy with Chip Kelly. That should be a win, though. Army at home won't be easy. They should go 3-0 in those games, but they're certainly games that Oklahoma should not be looking over. Road schedule's hard at Iowa State. At TCU, they have Texas in the Cotton Bowl Stadium. Red River game every year. At Lubbock won't be easy. And they close the season at Morgantown against West Virginia. They're over-under numbers at 10. I'm going to take the under here, although this feels like a push. Kyler Murray, who everybody loves, who was drafted by the Oakland Athletics in the baseball draft, might not even be the quarterback. And I really like Rodney Anderson, the running back, but I'm going to go under 10, although this feels like a push. I'm probably going to pick a push for my official prediction, though. But give me the under 10. Because I could easily see 2 losses on this schedule. Oklahoma State's number's at 8. I'm a big fan of Mike Gundy. He's in year 14. Their schedule's not easy. Even Boise State at home's not easy out of the conference. In conference, some favorable home games. They have to go to Lawrence. At Baylor. Baylor's going to be improved, but not that much improved. At Oklahoma is their toughest road game. At TCU is not easy. And they have some favorable home matchups with good teams such as Texas, Iowa State, and West Virginia. and Boise State, as I mentioned before. So, give me over 8, although a push is certainly in play here. I don't like that they lost Mason Rudolph and they have an inexperienced offensive line, but give me the over anyway because I'm a big fan of Mike Gundy. He tends to do more with less. The Texas Longhorns number's at 8.5. It's the second highest over-under total in the Big 12. Tom Herman in year 2. Year 1 was a disappointment. Although they won the Texas Bowl last year. I expect them to improve. They have some favorable matchups against some of their tougher opponents at home, such as USC, TCU, West Virginia, Iowa State, all at home. That should be 3-1. They have Oklahoma in the Red River Showdown. Tough road games include at Kansas State, at Oklahoma State, at Texas Tech, at Lawrence. Isn't tough, although they lost at Lawrence 2 years ago in Charlie Strong's final season. But this year they should be able to win at Lawrence. Like I mentioned, I'm a big fan of Tom Herman. Sam Ehlinger could be a breakout quarterback. Todd Orlando is a great defensive coordinator. Give me over 8.5 for Texas. I can easily see this team going 9-3. Next up is the TCU Horned Frogs. Went 10-2 a year ago. Really 11-3 though because they lost the Big 12 title game and they beat Stanford in the Alamo Bowl. 18th season for Gary Patterson. Their number set at 7.5. Seems a little low to me. Although they have to play Ohio State and Arlington this year. They have to go to Texas. They have to go to West Virginia. But they have some favorable home games on their schedule. They have Kansas State at home. They have Texas Tech at home. They have Iowa State at home. Even Oklahoma at home. I think they can win that game. I'm going to take the over. Although this is an inexperienced roster, I just like Gary Patterson. He's a good coach. Next up is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Their number's at 6. Cliff Kingsbury's in his 6th season. He's on the hot seat. Their schedule is interesting. They have to play Ole Miss in Houston to start the season. Houston comes to town. Lamar at home should be an easy win. They have to go to Oklahoma State. Some hard home games. West Virginia and Oklahoma and Texas come to town. Baylor and Arlington to close out the season. Hard road games at Kansas State, at Iowa State, at TCU, at Oklahoma State. To me, I'm going to go under, but I could see a scenario where this is a push. And last but not least, the West Virginia Mountaineers, their number's at 7. Their schedule is actually pretty difficult, especially at a conference. They have to play Tennessee and Charlotte. They have to go to NC State. Youngstown State at home should be a win at a conference. Their in-conference schedule, some favorable ones at home. Oklahoma comes to town. That's going to be a Friday night game. I believe that's on Black Friday. TCU comes to town. Baylor comes to town. Kansas comes to town. That should be a win. Road schedule's hard. I already mentioned at NC State. At Texas Tech won't be easy, although they won at Lubbock 2 years ago. At Iowa State's no gimme anymore. At Texas isn't hard, although they won at Austin 2 years ago. Their toughest road game, though, is at Oklahoma State. I'm going to go over because I absolutely love Will Grier and David Stills. That's the best quarterback-wide receiver combo in the conference. Will Grier is the favorite to win the Big 12 Player of the Year. I'm going to take over 7, although I could see a scenario where this is a push because of that hard road schedule. I could see them losing to NC State. I could see them losing to Texas and Oklahoma State and Texas Tech and Iowa State. So I could see a push scenario, but because of the talent on offense. And Tony Gibson's a great defensive coordinator. So I'm going to take the over. I can see this team going 8-4, 9-3, or even pushing it and going 10-2 and seeing themselves in the Big 12 title game. This could be a playoff dark horse if they get the appropriate wins and the respectable loss. Conference USA. Some interesting teams in this conference. I'm going to start with who is perhaps the worst team in this conference, and that is the Charlotte 49ers. They're still pretty much new to the FBS. Brad Lambert's in his 6th season. He's on the hot seat. Their schedule's not easy. Give me under 3.5. Next up, FAU. This is the best team in the conference. Lane Kiffin's in year 2. Their schedule is very interesting. They have a tough opener, which is probably going to be a loss at Oklahoma. Other than that, they have winnable games across the board. Even at UCF's winnable, but I don't think they're going to win that game. And even at North Texas won't be easy. To me, that's a loss. FIU overachieved a year ago. They have to place them on the road. So a few tough road games. I'm going to say under 9. Difficult schedule, but I'm going to say this is likely a push. Devin Singletary is one of the more underrated running backs in the country. I already mentioned FIU and the fact that they overachieved a year ago. The Panthers, Butch Davis in year 2. Difficult schedule. Indiana coming into town week 1. They have to go to Old Dominion in week 2. They have to go to at Miami in week 4. UMass at home week 3 isn't even going to be easy for them. I'm going to say under 5, although a push won't shock me here. Louisiana Tech's next on the list. The Bulldogs, Skip Holtz in year 6. Talented defense. Their schedule's pretty hard. They have to go to LSU on September 22nd. That's week 4. At North Texas in week 5. That's going to be hard. At FAU, at Mississippi State, at Southern Miss. This is a very hard road schedule. They're number 7. To me, this is an under lock with a bunch of hard road games. Although this is going to be a lock that I think I'm going to end up regretting. Marshall. The Herd. The Thundering Herd. Doc Holliday in year 9. He's a solid head coach. Their numbers at 7.5. Their schedule is difficult. They have to go to at Miami of Ohio in week 1. That's not going to be easy in the MAC. At South Carolina in week 3. NC State comes to town week 4. Those 3 games won't be easy. A lot of hard road games in conference. At Southern Miss, at Old Dominion, at Western Kentucky. FAU comes to town. I'm going to go under 7.5. This feels like 7.5 to me. Alex Thompson should be their quarterback. I mentioned how much I like Doc Holliday. I could easily see this going over. But I'm going to pick under. But a soft under. This feels like 7.5 to me. Next up, the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders. Rick Stockstill is in his 13th season as head coach. They went 6-6 a year ago, won their bowl game. Their numbers at 7. Their quarterback, Brent Stockstill, needs to stay healthy. I'm going to take the under on them. There's some hard games on the schedule, such as at Vanderbilt and at Georgia. At Marshall won't be easy. FAU comes to town. At FIU is not going to be easy. At Kentucky, UAB comes to town. At Old Dominion. This is a hard schedule. I'm going to say under, although this is probably a push. Next up is the North Texas Mean Green. Went 9-3 a year ago. They lost both their bowl game and the CUSA title game. Seth Litterall's in year 3. They begin the season with SMU at home. That could be a win, I think. Incarnate Word should be an easy win. At Liberty could be or probably should be a win. It's their first year in the FBS. At Arkansas, probably a loss. I could see some losses at UAB. At Old Dominion's hard. Even at UTSA is hard. Their number's at 8. I'm going to say under, although this feels like a push. To me, they're the favorites to win the West Division, or at least one of them. And their defense, to me, has to improve, although I like Mason Fine as their quarterback. Next up, the Old Dominion Monarchs. Bobby Wilder's in year 10. This team went a disappointing 5-7 a year ago. Their over-unders at 5.5. Their schedule has some favorable games in there. At Liberty, VMI comes to town, North Texas. That could be a win, an upset win at home. Middle Tennessee comes to town. Marshall comes to town. Hard road games at FAU, at Western Kentucky, and even at East Carolina won't be easy for them. So give me the over. As I mentioned, favorable schedule, good senior class, and I really like Bobby Wilder. Next up is one of the worst teams in college football, and that is the Rice Owls. Jerry Mack in year 1. Their schedule is very, 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 very hard. I only see one win on their schedule. Could be 2 if they beat UTEP. So that's an under. Southern Miss is next. The Golden Eagles. Jay Hobson in year 3. Their schedule is pretty favorable to start the season. They have to host Rice and Jackson State. Those should be 2 easy wins. Louisiana Monroe won't be easy out of conference. That should be a win, though. At Appalachian State's not going to be easy out of conference. At Auburn's hard. At North Texas is hard. The end, it lightens up a little bit. They have Marshall at home, UTSA at home, at Charlotte. At UAB, in theory, could be a loss. At UTEP's a win. So give me over 6.5 for Southern Miss, although this is a team in transition. The UAB Blazers. Bill Clark in year 3. This is their second season back after their hiatus. They were one of the biggest surprises in the sport a year ago after going 8-4, although they lost in their bowl game. Their schedule is favorable. Even their out-of-conference schedule is favorable. That could be, in theory, 3 wins. I really, really like the over, although this team overachieved a year ago. Their defense is bad. Their offense is good. Give me over 7.5. I could easily see this team going 8-4. Next up is one of the worst teams in college football, and that is the UTEP Miners. Mike Canales in year 1. I really only see one win on this schedule, so the under is a no-brainer here. Next up is the UTSA Roadrunners. Frank Wilson in year 3. This team went 6-5 a year ago and somehow didn't make a bowl game. That's weird. Their schedule out of conference is difficult, other than Texas State coming to town. And then their in-conference schedule isn't that difficult, other than at UAB, at Southern Miss, and at Marshall. So give me over 5. I expect the Roadrunners to make a bowl game. Last but not least in this conference is the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, WKU. Mike Sanford Jr. year 2 as their head coach. At Wisconsin, at Louisville, won't be easy out of conference. Maine's probably a win. At Ball State, in theory, could be a win. Favorable home schedule, Marshall, Dominion, FIU, those are good teams, but they host all those teams. At FAU is not going to be an easy road game. Neither is at Middle Tennessee. Louisiana Tech on the road is going to be hard. And UTEP at home as well. I like the over here. Could be a bowl team. Gervais Thomas should be solid at quarterback for them. Independents now. The Independents are going to be pretty good this year, I think. Spoiler alert. First up, the Army Black Knights, who have become a relevant program in college football. Jeff Monken in year 5. Army went 10-3 a year ago with the win in the Armed Forces Bowl. It's amazing how much this program has turned a corner. Their schedule's pretty favorable. At Oklahoma is probably almost definitely a loss. Their number is at 7.5. I really, really love the over. I can see this team going 8-4, 9-3. I think the over is an absolute no-brainer pick here for Army. Next up is the BYU Cougars. Their number's at 5.5. Kalani Stiak is in year 3 as a head coach. BYU looks to bounce back from their dreadful season a year ago. They went 3-9. Their schedule's pretty tough, although they have some favorable home games. At Arizona, at Wisconsin, at Washington are probably all losses. Utah State, Hawaii, Northern Illinois all come to town. At Boise State's hard. At UMass is even going to be hard. New Mexico State at home. At Utah is going to be hard. This feels like 6-6 to me, so give me the over. I think Tanner Mangan will be the quarterback. He's healthy now. BYU should be in a bowl. Liberty's a new team that's an independent. Their win total's not up yet, so I'm not going to have an official pick for Liberty. See how they do in year 1 in the FBS. Next up is UMass. Their number's 5. Mark Whipple in year 5 in his second stint as head coach for the Minutemen of UMass. This is a very good senior class. Their schedule is a bit more favorable this season. They have Duquesne at home. That should be a win. They have some of the weaker group of 5 teams at home, such as Charlotte and Coastal Carolina and Liberty. BYU at home. I can easily see this team going 6-6, so give me the over, although this feels like a push. New independent. The New Mexico State Aggies. Doug Martin in year 6. Their schedule is a bit favorable. Wyoming at home, New Mexico at home. New Mexico is taking a big step back. At Minnesota on the road is not going to be easy. At Utah State on the road, not going to be easy. At UTEP should be a win. Liberty should be a win. They face Liberty twice. That should be 2 wins. Alcorn State at home is an easy win. And this is actually my lock. Over 6. Like I said, very favorable schedule. Doug Martin's a great coach. Last but not least in the independents is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Their number's at 7.5. Brian Kelly already in year 9. Their schedule's very hard. Some favorable home games, though, with some good teams. Michigan comes to town. Stanford comes to town. Vandy comes to town. Pitt comes to town, although Pitt's not a good team. Florida State comes to town. They play Syracuse at Yankee Stadium. They have to go to USC. That's not easy. At Northwestern's not easy. At Virginia Tech's not easy. At Wake is not easy. This has 8-4 written all over it. Over 7.5 is the pick. Brandon Wimbush, to me, if Notre Dame gets to 9 or 10 wins, is going to be a Heisman candidate, and I think this is a playoff dark horse if things break right. The MAC. First up is the Akron Zips. Terry Bowden's in year 7. Their number's 4. Their schedule's very difficult. I'm going under, although this could be a push. Next up is the Ball State Cardinals. Mike News in year 3. They have some favorable home games on their schedule, so I'm going to take over here. They're getting some key offensive players back from injury. I'm going to go over 4, as I mentioned, although this is a push in the making. Bowling Green is at 5.5. That number is ridiculously too high for the Falcons. Mike Jinks is in year 3. He's on the hot seat. Bowling Green went 2-10 a season ago. So that's what makes 5.5 way too ridiculous. I love the under here. And the offense, to me, has to improve. The Buffalo Bulls number is at 6.5. Lance Leopold's in year 4. I think he's done a nice job there. The team went 6-6 a year ago, although they did not make a bowl game. This could be a bowl team again. They have some favorable home matchups, although their schedule is pretty hard. Tyree Jackson and Anthony Johnson is a good quarterback wide receiver combo. I'm going to take the under 6.5, although I really like 6-6 for Buffalo. Central Michigan's number is at 4. The Chippewas, John Bomnigo is in year 4. Their schedule sets up nicely. They have some winnable home games. Even I think they can beat Kansas. They have a good freshman wide receiver in Drayton Law. I'm going to go over 4, although this feels like a push to me. Next up is the Eastern Michigan Eagles. Chris Creighton's in year 5. This team went 5-7 a year ago. I expect them to improve. They have a lot of favorable matchups at home. Number 6. I like them to go over, and I think this is a lock. And I really like their quarterback that they got, Tyler Wiegers, who's a good transfer QB. Kent State is next. This is the worst team in the conference. The Golden Flashes, Sean Lewis in year 1 as head coach. Their schedule is very difficult. I only see one win on there, which is the home game in week 2 against Howard. Under's a no-brainer here, although their new transfer quarterback, Woody Barrett, could be a big help. Next up is the Miami Redhawks of Ohio. Chuck Martin in year 5. This team was a disappointment last year. They went 5-7. They had a couple big injuries. They have some favorable games at home. I think home against Marshall in week 1 could be a win. I think they could beat Cincinnati on the neutral in the Victory Bell. Some other favorable home in-conference matchups, Kent State, Ohio, even Ohio's pretty good. Ball State at home could be a win. So give me over, although I think this could be a push. And I actually like this team's defense a lot. Next up, Northern Illinois. Their number set is 7. Rod Carey's in his 6th season with the Huskies. I like how the schedule breaks for them, although they're probably going to go 0-3 in the non-con with at Iowa, at Florida State, and Utah at home. Favorable schedule in conference, Central Michigan at home, Ohio at home. At BYU won't be easy. Even Toledo at home, Miami of Ohio at home, they'll split those 2 games. Although their schedule does sort of break in their favor a little bit, I'm going to take the under here, although this feels like a push. Marcus Childers I like as their quarterback, by the way. Next up is the Ohio Bobcats. Their number's at 8.5. I think that's a little high. Frank Solich is in year 14 as head coach. Their non-con schedule, I can see them going 2-2, 3-1, or even 4-0. Let's just say that's 4-2. I really think that at Virginia and at Cincinnati are 2 very possible losses there. At Miami of Ohio is not easy. At Western Michigan even won't be easy. At Northern Illinois is not easy. So I can easily envision 5 losses there, if not even 4. So I really, really like the under for Ohio. This feels like 8-4. Although I like this team's offense led by quarterback Nathan Rook and running back AJ Ollett. Next up is the Toledo Rockets. Their number's also at 8.5. Jason Candle, year 3 as head coach in his second stint. I think that this is a coach on the rise. I think he could get another job eventually. They're non-con. I could easily envision them going 2-2. They're not going to beat Miami, I don't think. At Fresno State's hard. I can see them beating Nevada. They're going to beat VMI. The rest of the schedule is actually pretty difficult, especially the road portion. At Northern Illinois and at Eastern Michigan could be losses. Even at Western Michigan could be a loss. The number's 8.5. This feels like 8-4 rather than 9-3. So, give me the under for Toledo. Their offense is pretty good, although I don't think they have a good answer, really, at quarterback. I mentioned how much I like you chasing candles. So, the Toledo Rockets are 8-4 in the making, to me. Western Michigan, 5.5. Tim Lester in year 2 as head coach. Their schedule is very difficult. They have to face Syracuse in week 1 at home. Syracuse I like as an improved team. At Michigan is a loss. At Georgia State could be a win. Delaware State will be a win. The rest of the road schedule is hard. At Miami of Ohio, at Central Michigan won't be easy. Even at Ball State won't be easy. Toledo and Ohio at home. Those could be losses too. So give me under 5.5. I don't think they make a bowl game. This is, to me, 5-7 in the making. Although I like their quarterback, John, with Sink. Next up is the Mountain West Conference. This conference is pretty good. They have some sneaky group of 5 candidates in here. The first team I'm going to talk about is the Air Force Falcons. Their number's at 4.5. Troy Kellen's in year 12. Their schedule, I like how it sets up. I think they can beat Navy at home. Stony Brook at home in week 1 is going to be a win. Favorable in-conference matchup. I think they can beat Boise State at home. New Mexico is rebuilding. That's probably a win. Colorado State at home is probably a win. I like how the schedule breaks. I think this could be a bowl team. I'm going to take the over for Air Force. Next up is the Boise State Broncos. Their number's at 10. Brian Harson's in year 5 as head coach. I think he's the best head coach in this conference, perhaps. This team, I like. At Oklahoma State's not easy. At Troy, week 1 even won't be easy for them. I could see them losing some road games, although some of their home games are favorable, such as Fresno State comes to town, Utah State comes to town, BYU comes to town, Colorado State's a good team, they come to town, San Diego State's good, they come to town. That's not a guaranteed 5-0. I think they could be tripped up at home. Maybe San Diego State trips them up, perhaps. The number's at 10. I'm going to take the under. This feels like a 9-3 team to me, although I really like Brian Harsin. I think he's a good head coach. Brett Rippin is going to be a good quarterback. So I'm going to go under 10, although I won't rule out a push. Next up is the Colorado State Rams. Mike Bobo in year 4. I like how the schedule favors for this team, although I don't love that they have to face Colorado in week 1. Hawaii in quote-unquote week 0 should be a win. Arkansas in week 2 is probably a loss, although that could be an upset special. At Florida is a loss. Illinois State at home is a win. The rest of the in-conference schedule sets up favorable home matchups, and they have to go to at San Jose State. So this is a lock over for me. This is absolutely a bowl team. And KJ Carter-Samuels is their transfer quarterback that's coming in. I think he's going to do a good job. Next up is the Fresno State Bulldogs. Jeff Tedford in year 2 as head coach. He overachieved in year 1. Went 9-3 in the regular season. Their schedule is hard this year. They have to go to Minnesota and UCLA and Nevada. New Mexico's rebuilding, though. UNLV won't be easy. Boise State's not going to be easy. San Diego State at home not going to be easy. I can see a couple losses in there. Their number's 8. I'm going to say under, although this could be a push. And I really like their quarterback, Marcus Marion. Next up is the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Nick Rolovich in year 3 as head coach. Their schedule is very difficult, although they have some favorable home games. I can see them pulling off some upsets. Their number's at 3.5. I'm going to take the over. They have a very awesome wide receiver in John Yarusa. I almost picked under for Hawaii, but I'm going to take the over here and bank on them going 4-8 or 5-7. Next up is the Nevada Wolfpack. Jay Norvell in year 2. Their number's at 6. I like how their schedule sets up. I'm going to say that this is an over, although a push can't be ruled out. This is a good offensive team led by quarterback Ty Gangi. Next up is the New Mexico Lobos. Bob Davie in year 7. This is a coach that's under pressure. He's on the hot seat. New Mexico's numbers at 4. I think they take a step back this year. Their schedule is very, very difficult. I only see 2 guaranteed wins on the schedule against Liberty and Incarnate Word. It stinks that they don't even have to face San Jose State, or else that would have been another win. Although Bob Davie's gotten a lot out of his teams in the past, so I won't rule out a push. But I'm going to say under here for the Lobos, although I will feel bad to see Bob Davies potentially lose his job because I think he's done a nice job at New Mexico. Next up is the San Diego State Aztecs. Rocky Long's in year 8. This team upset Stanford a year ago. Went 10-2. They have to play Stanford again, except at Stanford this year, so I don't really expect them to upset Stanford again. Arizona State at home could be an upset special. And I like that they have to see Eastern Michigan at home. That's probably a win. Sacramento State at home is a guaranteed win pretty much. Hard road schedule at Boise State, at Nevada, at Fresno. I really, really, really like this San Diego State team. 8.5 is a little high of a number. I'm going to say it's an under, but I feel like it's an 8-4 team. Jawan Washington, by the way, breakout running back potentially. Next up's the worst team in the conference, San Jose State. Brett Brennan in year 2. The number's 3. It's an under. This is going to be the one that I'm going to regret not making a lock, although I love the Colorado State over too. Let's just move on. San Jose State's a joke. UNLV Rebels, their number's at 6. Tony Sanchez in year 4. I think he's done a great job there as the head coach. Armani Rogers, great quarterback. He's a great supporting cast. I absolutely love the over here. At USC's almost definitely a loss. Favorable home schedule. They have to go to at San Jose State, which is likely a win. At Hawaii could be a loss in theory. They have Nevada at home. Fresno at home. Air Force at home. Prairie View A&M's a guaranteed win. New Mexico at home, that's a rebuilding team. I really, really like the over for UNLV, although a push can't be ruled out. This feels like a 7-5 team to me. Next up is the Utah State Aggies. Matt Wells in year 6. This team went 6-6 a year ago, made a bowl game. This team's number's at 7.5 this year. I think this is high. Their schedule isn't that easy. They have New Mexico State at home. They have to go to Michigan State week 1. They're at BYU on October 5th. At Wyoming's not easy. At Hawaii's not easy. At Colorado State and at Boise to close out the season, not easy. This feels like 7-5, 6-6 in the making. I'm going to say under here. Although I like Jordan Love, their quarterback. And last but not least, in the Mountain West Conference is the Wyoming Cowboys. Craig Bowles in year 5. I think he's done a great job there. This team went 7-5 a year ago under Josh Allen. He's gone. The number's 6.5. This feels like the right number to me. Tough schedule. I'm going to say under. This is probably going to go 6-6. Their defense is going to be good, led by safety Andrew Wingard, who I think is the best defensive player in the Mountain West Conference. Fun conference coming up in the Pac-12. The first team I'm going to talk about is a team I really, really like, and that's the Arizona Wildcats. Kevin Sumlin takes over for Rich Rodriguez as head coach. Khalil Tate, Heisman candidate. I like how their schedule breaks. At Houston's not going to be easy. Neither is at Utah or at UCLA. At Wazoo even won't be easy. I can easily see this team going over 7.5. This is 8-4, 9-3 in the making. I mentioned I love Kevin Sumlin. I think he's going to be great there. So that's an over pick for me with Arizona with 7.5. Arizona State, meanwhile, their number's at 5. Herm Edwards is their coach. To me, that was such a bad hire. Like, that guy shouldn't even be coaching. He should still be doing Sports Center on ESPN. But no, he's the Arizona State coach, and I do not think he's going to succeed, at least in year one. They're probably going to win week 1 against UTSA at home. Michigan State at home is probably a loss. At San Diego State's not going to be easy. Their road schedule is so difficult in conference. At Washington, at Colorado, at USC, at Oregon, at Arizona. Those are probably all losses. Home schedule's not easy either. They have to play Stanford at home, Utah at home, UCLA at home. Oregon State's probably a win, though. So I'm going under 5. This feels like 4-8, 3-9 to me, and this is a lock. Next up is the Cal Golden Bears. Justin Wilcox in year 2. I like Wilcox a lot. They play North Carolina at home. Could be a win. Probably should be a win. At BYU won't be easy. Idaho State, it's probably a win. Their road schedule is not great. At Arizona, even at Oregon State, could be an upset loss. At Wazoo, not easy. At USC, not easy. 5.5 is a tricky number. I'm going under. This feels like 5 and 7 to me. I really like their receiver, though, Demetrius Robertson. The Colorado Buffaloes numbers at 4. This feels very low to me. Mike McIntyre in year 6. He overachieved 2 years ago, but last year disappointing 5 and 7. Their schedule is in their favor. I like them in the matchup against Colorado State. At Nebraska won't be easy, though. New Hampshire at home will be a win. Their in-conference schedule, they have some favorable home matchups. Arizona State and Oregon State should be wins. Wazoo will probably be a win, too. Won't be surprised if this is a bowl team. I'm going over 4. Probably going to be 5 and 7, though. And I really like Trayvon McMillan as a transfer coming in, and he'll have an impact on this team's offense. Next up is the Oregon Ducks. Their number's at 8.5. New head coach in Mario Cristobal after their head coach Willie Taggart left for Florida State. Their schedule is very, very, very favorable. They have some tough games in there. At Wazoo's hard. At Utah's hard. Washington and Stanford both come to Eugene this year. That's favorable for them. I'm going over. I think Justin Hubert's a Heisman candidate. Mario Cristobal is just lucky in year 1. Oregon State, we're going to be quick here. Jonathan Smith's their new hire as their head coach. He was a legend with the Beavers. Their number's 2.5. I'm going under. That's a lock. They open with OSU. This feels like 2 and 10 in the making. Next is Stanford. Their number's 8. This is tricky. David Shaw in year 8 already. Their schedule is not so favorable. They have some hard road games at Oregon and at Notre Dame. At least USC comes to town. San Diego State comes to town. At Arizona State's probably a win, though. Wazoo comes to town. At Washington's hard. At Cal even's going to be hard. I'm going to go over because this team is just too talented to finish with less than 8 wins. I won't be shocked if this is a push. I love David Shaw. Bryce Love's probably going to be the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year, although there are 2 great quarterbacks in Khalil Tate and Justin Herbert. Next up is the UCLA Bruins. Their number's 5. Chip Kelly in year 1. The Bruins went 6-6 a year ago. Lost in their bowl game. Their schedule is pretty difficult. But I'm going to take the over here, because they have some favorable home games. I expect them to win against Fresno State in week 3. Although that probably isn't going to be easy. Cincinnati's probably a win. They're going to pick somebody off, whether it's USC, Stanford. They can win at Arizona State, I think. Even Washington could be a win. At Colorado is probably a loss. I'm going to take the over here, although this is probably going to be a push. USC's at 8.5. I think this is a little high. They lose Sam Darnold. Clay Helton, year 3. UNLV week 1's probably a win. Their road schedule is very hard. At Stanford, at Texas, at Arizona, at Utah, at Oregon State, at UCLA. That in theory, and they have Notre Dame at home, which is a good thing. Although that game won't be easy. I can easily envision 4 losses on the schedule. This has 8-4 written all over it, so I'm going under 8.5 here. But I like their freshman quarterback, JT Daniels, and I really like Clay Helton too. Next up is the Utah Utes. Kyle Whittingham in year 14. Their number is 7. They went 6-6 a year ago. They won their bowl game last year against West Virginia in a game where Will Greer was hurt. Favorable home schedule. Their road schedule, they have to go to Northern Illinois. That even won't be that easy, although I expect them to win that game. Washington State and Stanford on the road. UCLA on the road. Colorado on the road. Favorable home schedule. Like I said, the number's 7. I love Kyle Whittingham. Their defense is going to be good. They're always a tough out. So, give me over 7. This feels like 8-4 to me. Next up is the Washington Huskies. Their number's 10.5. Very hard schedule. Chris Peterson in year 5. He's done a great job with this team. The opening game is going to be so hard. Auburn in Atlanta. So that's going to feel like an Auburn home game because that's SEC country. At Utah is not going to be easy. A lot of hard road games. I'm taking the under here with Washington. This feels like 10-2, 9-3 for me. Although this is a very good team and I like Jake Browning, arguably the best team in the conference. And last but not least, Washington State, 6.5 is their number. Mike Leach in year 7. He's on the hot seat. This team went 9-3 a year ago. Lost in the Holiday Bowl to Michigan State. Schedule is very difficult. Even at Wyoming in week 1 will be hard. USC in week 4 at the Coliseum. At Stanford, at Colorado on the road. They have Arizona and Washington coming to town. Some favorable home games on the schedule. But you know what? Give me the over 6.5. They could go 7-5 to me. Maybe 8-4. And I really like Mike Leach. They're going to be a tough out at home as usual. So give me over 6.5. Next up, the SEC. Everybody's favorite conference. And of course, as always, the best team, the reigning national champions, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Their number is at 11. Tua Tagovailoa could very well be a Heisman finalist. I think he can win the Heisman Trophy. Nick Saban's already in year 12. Their schedule breaks pretty right for them. At LSU is their toughest road game. They have to face Louisville in the opener. They have to go to Ole Miss. Arkansas, Tennessee, Auburn, and Mississippi State have to come to Tuscaloosa this year. I'm going to take the over and bank on them going 12-0. And I think they are the favorites to repeat as national champions. Next up, the Arkansas Razorbacks. New coach in Chad Morris. Their number's at 6. Their schedule's tough. I just mentioned they have to go to Tuscaloosa. They also have to go to Auburn. They have to play Texas A&M in Arlington, as they do every year. At Colorado State might even be a loss. Some favorable home games, I could easily see them going 6-6, but I'm going to take the under. They have uncertainty all over this roster. Next up is the Auburn Tigers. They're, I think, underrated due to being in the same conference as Alabama and Georgia. Gus Malzahn's in year 6 already. I really think that Jarrett Stidham is a Heisman candidate. Their schedule's tough. They have to face Washington in the opener. At least LSU comes to town. At Mississippi State could be a loss. At Georgia could be a loss. At Alabama could be a loss. So I can easily see 3 losses already on this schedule. This is probably going to be a push, but I'm going to take the under here because this number is very, very tricky. Next up is the Florida Gators. Their number's at 7.5. Dan Mullen's their new head coach. Their schedule, I think, is pretty favorable. Some hard road games in there. They have to place Georgia and Jacksonville as they do every year. At Florida State's probably their toughest true road game. Give me the over for 7.5. I love the Dan Mullen hire, as I mentioned. Kadarius Toney's a breakout wide receiver this year. Next up is the Georgia Bulldogs. Their number's 10.5. Kirby Smart. I'm tempted to say that he's the second best coach in the SEC behind Nick Saban already. But then you forget that Dan Mullen is still in this conference. He overachieved at Mississippi State the last couple years. And Jimbo Fisher's new to this conference. But Kirby Smart, what he did in Georgia in his second season was just remarkable. Getting this team to the national title game. Should have won that game. But Nick Saban and Alabama found a way to win that game. Courtesy of Tua Tagovailoa. Their road schedule is actually pretty difficult. They have to go to South Carolina and Missouri. They have to face Florida on the neutral. Auburn comes to town. But that said, give me over. This is an 11-1 in the making, maybe even 12-0. Could be a playoff team again. And Jake Fromm's a Heisman candidate. Next up is the Kentucky Wildcats. Mark Stoops in year 6. This team went 7-5 a year ago. Their number this year is 5.5. Their schedule is very difficult. This year they have to go to Florida. Mississippi State comes to town. At Texas A&M could be a loss. At Mizzou's probably a loss. At Tennessee's not going to be easy. And at Louisville won't be easy. I'm going to say under, but probably 5-7. Next up is the LSU Tigers. Their number's at 7. Coach O, year 2 as the full-time head coach. There's talk that he's on the hot seat. Their schedule is very hard. They have to face Miami in week 1, but lucky enough that that's an SEC country in Arlington. At Auburn's hard. At Florida's hard. Bama comes to town. Mississippi State and Georgia come to town. I think they can pull off some home upsets. I think they can beat Georgia and Mississippi State. Maybe they can pull off an upset over Bama. At Florida's probably a loss. At Arkansas, they could probably win that game this year. Arkansas is a little bit weaker than usual. At Texas A&M's probably a loss. The number 7, I'm going to take the over and bank on them going 8-4. They're going to have a great defense, too, led by linebacker Devin White. Mississippi State's next. Their number's 8.5. Joe Moorhead in year 1. I think he's going to do a good job. He did a great job as offensive coordinator of Penn State. Their schedule is pretty favorable. At Kansas State's a losable road game in week 2, though. But I think they can win that game. That's a winnable game. Kansas State's not going to be the Kansas State of old. I'm not a fan of that Kansas State team this year. I actually picked them under on the Big 12 portion of this. Florida and Auburn are 2 hard home games. I think they can split those games, even potentially win both. At LSU's probably a loss. Texas A&M at home, that could be a win. They're not beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa. If anything, that's probably going to be a game day because I think that Mississippi State's going to be in the mix. I'm just going to take the over 8.5. This is 9-3 in the making. Nick Fitzgerald, to me, is a dark horse Heisman candidate. Missouri's next. They're number 7.5. I think that's pretty high. I'm a big fan of their quarterback, Drew Lock. I think, as I mentioned, this number's pretty high. I'm going to take the under here. Hard road games. At Purdue even could be a loss. At Alabama's going to be a loss. At Florida could be a loss. Even some hard home games, too. Georgia is probably a loss. Even Memphis, I think. That's winnable, but probably a loss. At Florida's a hard road game. So to me, this feels like a 7-5 team rather than an 8-4 team. Ole Miss is next. They're number 6. That's a very hard schedule that they have to face. They're still postseason ineligible to NCAA scansions. Matt Luke in year 2. At least they have Alabama at home. They have to play Texas Tech in Houston. That's not going to be easy. At Arkansas is Auburn at home. South Carolina at home. At Texas A&M. Mississippi State at home. Hard schedule. I'm going under here, although don't rule out a push. Next up is South Carolina. Will Muschamp's in year 3 with the Gamecocks. I think he's done a nice job there. Went 8-4 a year ago and won the bowl game against Michigan. Their schedule, I think, sets up pretty nice. Couple favorable home games. Road schedule's pretty hard. They're not winning at Clemson. Probably won't win at Florida. So, that said, I like the over, but I think it's probably a push. I like Deebo Samuel. He's coming back from injury. One of the best receivers in the SEC, if not in all of college football. Next up is the Tennessee Volunteers. Jeremy Pruitt, year 1 as head coach. I think this has the makings of a disastrous season. This schedule is very difficult. They have to open the season against West Virginia on a neutral. And it's in Charlotte. Their second and third games are probably wins against East Tennessee State and UTEP. Florida could be a loss. At Georgia, at Auburn, or Alabama comes to town. I'm sorry. Those 3 games are probably losses. At South Carolina could be a loss. Charlotte's probably a win. But yeah, this schedule I don't really love. I wouldn't really rule out a bowl game necessarily. But to me, I only see 5 wins on this schedule. So 5.5 is an under, and I think it's a lock. Their defense is not good, and they have uncertainty at quarterback. This is 5-7 in the making. Texas A&M, they're number 7. Great coaching hire in Jimbo Fisher, and a great assistant hire in the coordinator Mike Elko, who will be in charge of their defense. Darryl Dickey's their offensive coordinator. Schedule's a bit favorable. I think there's a chance that ESPN takes College Game Day to College Station in week 2 as Clemson comes to town. Clemson, top 5 team in the country. Sucks they have to go to at Alabama in week 4. At Mississippi State, October 27th is going to be hard. LSU at home is favorable for them. This feels like a push to me, but I'm going to take the over. Here, I can see this team going 8-4. I like Trayvon Williams, their running back. And I think Jimbo Fisher is going to get a lot out of this team. Last but not least in this conference is the Vanderbilt Commodores. Derek Mason in year 5. He's a coach that's on the hot seat. Favorable schedule. At Notre Dame's probably a loss. At Georgia's probably a loss. At Mizzou, probably a loss. Some favorable home games here. So I'm going to take the over here. I think this team can get a bowl game. Last but not least, the Sun Belt. I'm going to just rip through the Sun Belt. Because there are not many great teams in this conference, as you all know. There's some nice teams that are capable of pulling off some upsets, but none of them are really stickouts. First time this season where they have the East and the West division. New Mexico State's no longer in this conference. They're an independent, so they broke up this conference into two divisions, and I think the Big 12 should be doing this as well, breaking up North and South or East and West, probably North and South in the future. But here we go. Appalachian State Mountaineers. Scott Satterfield's in year 6. 8.5's their number. They've been good the past few seasons. Good defense led by Clifton Duck, their cornerback. I'm going to take the over here. Arkansas State, their number's 9. They've been a good team for a while. Blake Anderson's in year 5. Favorable schedule. Although, out of conference is difficult. They're not winning at Alabama in week 2. They're just not. Justice Hansen's a good quarterback. I'm going to take the over here, but I think it's a push. Coastal Carolina's 3.5. One of the worst teams in this conference, if not the worst. They're still new to the FBS. Joe Moglia's in year 6. I'm going to take the under. Georgia Southern's at 6.5. They have a new coach in Chad Lunsford. They have a good senior class. This should be a bowl team. I'm taking the over. Georgia State was a surprise in this conference last year under Sean Elliott. Their schedule's a little bit harder. They have to go to Memphis and NC State out of conference. I'm going to take the under at Georgia State, although I think it's going to be a push. Although this is a good defensive team as well. Next up is the Louisiana Lafayette Raging Cajuns. They're actually not Louisiana Lafayette anymore. They're just the Louisiana Raging Cajuns now. Billy Napier's in year 1 as a head coach. Favorable schedule for this team. This defense is going to be improved, led by defensive lineman Joe Dillon. This should be a bowl team. I'm taking the over. Louisiana Monroe, I think, is going to be one of the more improved teams in this conference. Matt Vanter's in year 3. This team went 4-8 a year ago. I think they're going to be improved. Favorable schedule. Their number's at 6. Caleb Evans, I think, is going to be one of the breakout players in this conference. He's their starting quarterback. I'm going to take the over here, and this is a lock for me. South Alabama's at 3.5. I expect a big step back from this team. Steve Campbell's in year 1 as head coach. This team went 4-8 a year ago. I think they take a bigger step back. I'm going to say under 3.5, although I like Cephas Johnson, their freshman quarterback. Worst team in the conference is the Texas State Bobcats. Their schedule is so hard. Everett Withers in year 3. He's on the hot seat. Their number's 3, and give me the under. Troy is at 8.5. They're one of the better teams in this conference. Neil Brown's in year 4. I think he's going to eventually get a new head coaching gig. Their defense is going to be good, led by Hunter Reese. 8.5 is a high number. I'm going to take the under since the schedule isn't that great. They have to open with Boise State, which is not easy whatsoever. They have to go to Boone the last week of the season to take on Appalachian State. Some other hard games at Louisiana Monroe could be a loss. At Nebraska is probably a loss. At Georgia Southern could be a loss. So I'm going to take the under and bank on Troy going 8-4 rather than 9-3. That's it for the over-unders for college football, and that's it for today's podcast. I'm going to be back tomorrow recapping all the things that go on in the world of sports. Tomorrow I'm also going to be doing my 2009 NFL redraft as well. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.